Winter can be a rewarding time to visit the beach. It's too cold to swim in the ocean, but there's plenty to enjoy. In the next few videos, we'll be visiting the Cape Fear area of North Carolina. Cape Fear got its name because there are a lot of sandbars and shallow shoals, which the sailors have had to navigate. It's an area of shipwrecks and hurricanes. In this video, we're visiting Wrightsville Beach, which has a year-round population of 3,000 people, but it can swell to almost 50,000 in the summer. It's a popular area for swimming, surfing, and fishing. People have been vacationing here since the late 1800s when the Carolina Yacht Club was built here and was only accessible by boat. When the first few cottages and businesses were built here, it was known as Oceanville Beach. It was later named Wrightsville after Joshua Wright, who had a realty business. Soon there was a railroad that brought people here from Wilmington. Then that was replaced by a streetcar system. And cars were actually banned from Wrightsville Beach until the 1930s. There's lots of hotels you can choose from in the area, and if not Wrightsville Beach, there's Curry Beach and Carolina Beach. For this trip, I'm staying at Shell Island Resort, which is the last stop north of Wrightsville Beach. So here we go. So I have my door card and I'm looking for my room. I'm hoping it's the one at the end here. And yes, all right. Hopefully this will be nice and quiet. Yeah, this looks nice. Looks very clean. Nice spacious room. And because we're on the end, there's a second view. Look at this. This is nice. There's a kitchenette as well. Look at that view. A lovely view out there. Heading out now to see more of the hotel. This resort was built in 1987. Each unit is actually independently owned, and then all the units are managed as a hotel. There were some mixed reviews earlier last year, but then the ratings started going up, so I think they've done a lot of upgrading. The price is reasonable, another advantage to visiting in the winter. Although I'm a little put off with having to pay for daily parking. I can understand if you're just here to use the beach, but if you're staying here, it should be free. I'm attending a bird festival here, Cape Fear Women's Birding Festival. However, I know birding isn't everyone's cup of tea, so I won't be covering that in this video, but you might see a few birders occasionally. I wish I had brought my bathing suit because it looks like they have an indoor pool as well as an outdoor one. There's the restaurant. During the winter, it's open on the weekends, but not during the week.
Well, and she loves physical therapy, so,
Okay, here's the birding keynote. See you tomorrow. So here we are in Wrightsville, North Carolina. As you can see, it's going to be a beautiful day. Before starting out this morning, I had to get some breakfast. I found this place called Blueberry's Grill. The outside looks small, but it's actually quite large, so getting seated on a busy morning wasn't an issue, and I highly recommend it. Off to the right is Airlie Gardens, which we'll stop at. I noticed yesterday, too, that when you drive through the center of town, there's this walkway to this pretty tree-lined area, and there are always people walking on it, no matter how cold it is. Airlie Gardens is a 1-acre arboretum that is just off the walking path, and it's free. I'd imagine that in the summer this is a welcome area of shade, but even in the winter there's a bit to see. Looks like some construction here. Not surprised, my garden is always under construction too. Where you see the cars moving in the background, that's where the walking path is along the road. And despite this being close to the road, it's relatively quiet here. Nope, spoke too soon. Oh, look at the fairy door. That's pretty cool. I wish I had one of those in my garden. Well, this was the perfect place to take a walk after breakfast. Here we are at Meyers Cottage, which is fairly close to the gardens. And I hope you'll look past the dirt on the windshield. It must be the beach or the sand, but I've been struggling to keep the windshield clean here since I got here. I think I've cleaned this about 4 or 5 times already. The Meyers Cottage was built in 1909, and it was one of 20 that were built by the Suburban Developing Company. It was purchased by John Quince Meyers. It was originally moved from another location, and it's now known as the Wrightsville Beach Museum of History. I just found out, though, that it's only open at specific times during the winter, so look up the times online before you visit here. So let's see what's on this porch. And here's the front of an old streetcar. I can imagine everyone lined up to go to the beach, loaded up with all their beach gear. I wonder what kind of gear people took to the beach back in that day. There used to be an entertainment venue called the Lumina that had games, food, a dance floor, built in 1905 right at the beach. It was called Lumina because it had 6,000 exterior lights on it. You think about that. That must have been quite a sight back then. With fewer buildings, you would have probably have seen this from quite a distance. I bet it was very impressive. Unfortunately, the building was torn down in 1973 to make room for condominiums. We're heading off now to the south end to see if we can find this interesting home at Live Oak Drive. This is turning out to be a really cute neighborhood. So let's drive around a bit here. While I'm driving around aimlessly looking at other houses, I'll share what I know about when this house was built and the neighborhood at that time. This home was a Shore Acres model home built in 1928. In 1927, the Shore Acres Company had taken 70 acres of infilled marsh and hammock and offered 30 lots up for sale. Many of these lots sold them between $1,000 to $3,000 a lot. And the first one to be built was at 121 Live Oak Drive, which is the one we're going to see. And by see, I mean we're just going to drive by and look at it. I don't want to disturb the residents. It was designed in a Mission style. Mission at the time was going through a revival between 1890 and 1915. But here in Wrightsville Beach in 1928, this house was unique. Here's an example of some Mission revival style houses. Okay, done looking around the neighborhood. Let's go see this house. Oh, here it is. Isn't this cute? Now, we can't go in because someone lives here. It's their home. But you can see it has been really nicely restored. They've done a wonderful job. Just a lovely house. now heading north again toward Shell Island Resort. This is the north-south road that is closest to the beach. You'll see some restaurants and shops along here. We passed Crystal Pier, and further up is Johnny Mercer's Pier. Both are good for fishing. There's drum in the spring and fall, and mackerel and flounder in the summer. Back here at the hotel watching the waves. You might think that this is a relatively newer area, but Shell Island has an interesting history. In the early 1900s, beaches were racially segregated, and if you were black, you didn't have access to most of the beach. It could be dangerous just to go for a swim. A group of land developers saw some potential business in this and developed a black resort just a little south of this beach. It was called Shell Island Resort. Thousands of visitors traveled here by trolley and ferry, and it became very popular. In early 1926, however, there was a fire, and everything burnt to the ground. There were several possible motives, but some research points to the developers who had bailed out of the business a year earlier. Shell Island used to be a true island surrounded by water, and if you looked at maps before 1965, you'd see a gap between Shell Island and Wrightsville Beach, but this was filled in 1965. Good morning. It's been raining off and on all morning. I went birding on the beach earlier, and it was cold and wet. It's just after 1, and we're at Airlie Gardens. There are plenty of reasons to visit Airlie. We're here for the birds, but Airlie also offers different tours. They have a guided history tour, birding by tram, and blooms and brews. Or you can just explore here on your own. It's $10 for adults and $3 for children. If you're a county resident or military, it's $5. There's a visitor center. Just coming up on this huge live oak with the Spanish moss. Contrary to popular myths, Spanish moss isn't actually a moss, and it's not from Spain. It's a flowering plant in the pineapple family, and it doesn't harm the tree, but some people are allergic to it. Here's another one. This frog looks like the one we saw earlier at Acre Arboretum Gardens. I wonder if there's a local artist who creates these. That's interesting. What an unusual trunk. In some ways, Airlie Gardens reminds me of old Victorian gardens, and the history of these gardens actually dates back a bit. Sarah and Pembroke Jones bought the property in 1884 and turned it into this beautiful garden, which is 67 acres. These are black-crowned night herons. We're seeing a lot of these today despite the rain. What every garden needs. There is a bit of a mystery here, though. The headstone says, known in eternity, and the footstone says, JJH 1833. JJH stands for John J. Hill, who in his later years lived in Wrightsville Sound and tutored the children of Richard Bradley. However, John J. Hill was a fake name, and no one is sure what his real name was, but it's rumored that he was one of Napoleon's marshals. As you can see, Airlie Gardens is great even in the winter and when it's raining. A short distance from Airlie Gardens is Fish House Grill. I've grabbed a late lunch here. It sits on the intercoastal waterway and it's reasonably priced. You might recall the images earlier of Mason's Inlet. It's scenic and relaxing, and our next stop tomorrow. It's freezing today. A cold front has hit most of the south, and it's pretty brutal out here. If it wasn't for the birding, I'd be indoors with hot chocolate. Looking on the bright side, if it was summer right now, it would be buggy. Instead, we just have to be concerned about being really cold. I feel like I need to get some more layers, so I'm going to run back and get a few more things. That's better. I'm ready. They're way ahead. Perhaps if I walk quickly, I'll feel warmer. Well, this was worth catching up. This Herman's gull should be in California or British Columbia. It's rare for him to be here at any time of the year. When you walk around this area, you get a sense of what the land was like before development arrived. Back in 1991, Mason Inlet had to be relocated because the inlet was starting to migrate south, threatening the resort. There was also an issue with shoaling, where there's a buildup of sediment, which gradually reduces the depth of the water, and it can make for choppier navigation. Well, this wraps up our explorations of Wrightsville Beach. I hope you'll join us for our next video of Curry Beach.